close your eyes for a moment. Or don't, especially if you're walking around with a hot cup of chai. But if you're lying down, let your mind drift back, way back, to a time before cars, before phones, before Wi-Fi. Yes, a world without even a single notification sound. Hard to imagine, I know, but welcome to the Wild West that it's evening now. The sun is getting ready to slip behind a line of distant, rugged hills. The sky glows a soft orange fading into a dusty pink, like nature is painting a slow, sleepy watercolor. A warm wind pushes across the dry land, carrying a little grit and the smell of old wood, horse sweat, and something that might be beans left on the fire just a little too long that you're standing at the edge of a small frontier town. Nothing fancy. No tall buildings, no neon signs saying open 24/7, and definitely no coffee shop where people argue about latte foam. Just a row of wooden buildings sitting on a street made of, well, dirt. Not sand, not gravel, just plain, honest dirt. The kind that sticks to your boots and refuses to leave. Like a clingy friend as the last daylight fades, the shadows stretch long and lazy over the ground. A soft creaking sound rises from the old wooden boardwalk as someone steps on it. Or maybe the wind is just playing with the loose planks again. It's hard to tell. Everything here makes noise. The town never goes fully quiet. Even at night, there's always something whispering or tapping or sighing. Over by the saloon, the doors swing gently, as if someone invisible just walked in. They slam during the day when cowboys push through them, but at night they move slowly, almost politely, brushing back and forth with every breath of wind. Inside, the laughter and piano music from earlier have gone silent. The tables are empty now, except for a few abandoned glasses. A stray card lies on the floor, flipped face down, probably losing a card game all by itself that a pair of horses are tied to a post just outside, snorting softly, their heads dipping as they drift towards sleep. Every now and then one stomps a hoof, letting out a tired sigh, as if saying, "Long day, partner. Real long." Their saddles hang over the rail, worn from travel. The leather squeaks when the wind moves it. You can almost feel how dry it is, cracked from too many days under the hot sun. The air cools quickly after sunset in the Wild West. The day bakes the land like a giant oven, but once the sun goes down, the temperature drops like a rock. You feel that coolness now brushing against your face. It's fresh, but also a little sharp, like the wind is teasing you. It sneaks under collars and sleeves, reminding everyone to get near a fire soon. Somewhere far down the road, a coyote gives a long, lonely cry. It echoes through the empty plains. If you heard that sound today, you'd probably grab your phone and Google, what makes that creepy sound at night? But back then, people just nodded to themselves. Yep, that's the neighbors. Because out here, animals were always closer than other humans. A few lamps flicker on inside the small cabins. Their windows glow a warm yellow, soft and faint, nothing like the bright white of modern lights. These lamps take time and effort. You don't flip a switch. You light them with your hands. Sometimes they smoke. Sometimes they go out. Sometimes the flame dances in a strange way, and you just hope the house doesn't burn down while you sleep. One lamp hangs outside the sheriff's office. It swings a little on its metal hook, casting long, wobbly shadows across the wooden porch. The sheriff himself is probably inside, leaning back in his chair, hat over his face, pretending to rest his eyes for just a second. But come morning, someone will say, "Sheriff, you slept the whole night, didn't you?" And he'll reply, "No, I was thinking. Very deeply." "Sure you were, Sheriff." Sure. The dust cloud rolls lazily across the street as the wind picks up again. It moves slow, like even the dust is tired. Everything in the Wild West acts like it had a long day. Maybe because it did. You look around and notice the stillness. This is not city noise. It's not the hum of machines or the buzz of electricity. This is natural silence, the kind that almost feels too big, too empty. A silence so wide that your own breathing sounds loud. A silence where you hear every tiny thing. A door hinge groaning, an old horse chewing hay, a pot shifting slightly over a dying fire. And in this soft, quiet moment, you might be thinking, wow, this looks peaceful. I could totally live here. And that's adorable. Truly. But no, you couldn't. Not even for one day. Because behind all this beauty, the sunset, the creaking wood, the gentle horses. There's a harsh truth waiting in the shadows. Out here, nothing is easy. Everything takes strength, patience, and a stomach made of iron. People didn't live long, and they didn't live softly. If you got a splinter, it wasn't a minor problem. It was a medical concern. If you traveled alone at night, you didn't worry about losing phone signal. You worried about losing your life. But we'll get to all that. For now, just breathe. Let the dusty night settle around you. Imagine the cool air brushing past your face. Hear the small sounds drifting across the quiet town that a screen door shuts somewhere in the distance with a tired thump. A dog barks once, deciding that's enough work for today. A man walks past with a lantern, heading to check on the horses. His boots crunch softly on the dirt. Each step echoes in the stillness. The frontier night wraps around you like an old blanket, rough, but warm in its own strange way. This is the world we're stepping into tonight. A world of grit and danger and survival, but also one filled with stories, stars, and open skies that stretch forever. That IT looks peaceful now. Calm, even cozy. But by the time we finish this journey, you'll understand the truth. A modern person wouldn't last 24 hours in this place. Not even close. So settle in. Rest your hands. Let your mind drift as the night settles deeper over the Wild West. Our story has just begun. Take a slow breath, because the moment the sun rises on the frontier, the Wild West shows its real face. And honestly, it's not very friendly. In fact, if the Wild West had a dating profile, it would probably say, likes long walks, extreme weather, sudden danger. Not looking for anything serious, because you won't survive long anyway. Welcome to the land before civilization. Or at least before any kind of comfort. The day starts early here. Too early. Before the sky even turns blue, the land is already awake. Crickets fade into silence. The cold air starts to warm, and the first rays of sunlight creep across the dry earth, like someone slowly pulling the blanket off your sleeping face. Rude, but expected. This land has no paved roads, no traffic lights, and definitely no cozy breakfast spots. Everything is raw, wild, untouched. Imagine looking around and seeing miles and miles of open ground. No buildings, no trees, no signs pointing you anywhere. Just empty land stretching so far that your eyes get tired trying to follow it. It looks peaceful from a distance. But step onto it, and you quickly realize it's like a giant obstacle course designed by nature to test your willpower. Let's start with the ground. The dirt isn't soft and friendly. It's dry, cracked, and dusty. When you take a step, the dust jumps up like, oh hey, new friend, and then decides to stick to your clothes forever. Your boots sink just a little with every step, making the simple act of walking feel like a workout. By noon, you'll have dust in your shoes, dust in your pockets, dust in your ears, dust in places dust should not be. Rain is rare. The sky does not care about your hydration levels. And because water is so scarce, the land stays thirsty. Everything looks faded. Plants, rocks, even the sun looks tired sometimes. And when the weather does decide to show off, oh boy, it doesn't do anything halfway. Sometimes the heat slams into you like you opened an oven door with your face too close. The air wobbles in the distance from the heat rising off the ground. Animals hide under the smallest pieces of shade, and even the wind is like, no thanks, too hot, and goes somewhere else. But if you think the night brings relief, surprise. Nights in the Wild West are cold. Really cold. The kind of cold that sneaks through your jacket and then taps your spine, like it's trying to get your attention. The settlers learned to sleep hugging their blankets and fires like their lives depended on it, because sometimes they did. Now imagine you, a modern human, stepping into this climate without AC, without central heating, without even a tiny desk fan. You would melt by day and freeze by night. The Wild West didn't care about comfort. It cared about survival. And then there's the terrain. Hills that look easy from far away suddenly become steep when you're climbing them. Dry grass pricks your legs. Rocks wobble under your feet like they want to embarrass you. Cactus plants stand around judging you. And trust me, you don't want to run into a cactus. Those things are basically plant porcupines with anger issues. Some settlers had wagons, but wagons didn't solve the problem. They bounced over every bump like they were trying to launch the passengers into space. Wheels broke every other day. Axles snapped. And there were no auto repair shops in the wilderness. You fixed it yourself or you didn't go anywhere. Traveling even a short distance took forever. Imagine walking for hours under a burning sun, only to realize you've moved maybe 6 inches on the map. And you didn't even have Google Maps to tell you that you took the wrong turn 5 miles back. If you got lost, you just stayed lost until something, hopefully a helpful human, hopefully not a mountain lion, found you. Speaking of animals, the land was full of them. Some cute, some curious, some terrifying. A rabbit might hop across the path and make you smile. A rattlesnake might slide past and make you reconsider your entire life. Coyotes, wolves, bears, and big cats watched from the hills, some from far away, some from a little too close. Settlers learned to pay attention to every sound. A rustle in the grass, a low growl, footsteps that weren't yours. Out here, listening was not just a skill, it was a survival strategy. This land demanded toughness. It demanded focus. It demanded that you know how to handle yourself even when absolutely everything felt like it was trying to kill you. A modern person used to soft beds, climate control, and the luxury of saying, "Ugh, too hot, I'm going inside," would struggle within minutes. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We're just exploring the land for now, not surviving yet. You hear a distant rumble. Not thunder, not animals, just the wind rising across the open fields. Out here, the wind has a personality. Sometimes it's calm, gently brushing the grass and keeping you cool. Other times, it suddenly decides to go full chaos mode, kicking up dust and blowing your hat off your head. Cowboys learned to hold on to their hats like they were holding on to their last good idea. Then, out of nowhere, a dust storm could roll in. Imagine a giant cloud of dirt marching toward you like an angry army. Visibility drops to almost zero. Your eyes fill with grit. Your mouth tastes like powdered earth. You can't see your own hands. You can barely breathe. The storm doesn't care. It keeps moving. You hide behind whatever you can find and just hope the storm moves on before you do. But the weather isn't the only challenge. There's something else, the feeling of being truly alone. No buildings, no cars, no lights, no signs of human life for miles. Just open space stretching out like a giant, empty canvas. For settlers, this was normal. This was home. They lived with the land. They read the sky. They knew the paths. They respected the dangers. But for someone from today, someone who gets nervous when the Wi-Fi drops for 5 seconds, that kind of silence would feel overwhelming. A little too big. A little too empty. Imagine standing there with nothing but your thoughts and the sound of your own heartbeat. The world feels huge. You feel tiny. And the land doesn't even notice you're there. Still, there's a strange beauty to it all. The long horizon, the endless sky, the freedom of open space. It's peaceful in its own way. Quiet, honest, unforgiving, but also kind of magical. This was the world settlers stepped into every morning. A world without comfort, without shortcuts, without a quick fix. Every sunrise was a reminder, survive the land, or the land survives without you. And this is just the environment, just the backdrop. But trust me, the challenges are only beginning, because next, we move into the daily routine. Chores that make gym workouts look like warm-ups. And you? Let's see how long you last out. Let's step into the next part of our Wild West day. But before we do, I need you to imagine something very important. You are asleep. Yes, asleep in 1860 to NO mattress, NO memory foam, NO AC humming in the background, NO warm shower waiting for you. Just you, a rough wooden room, and a mattress that feels like someone stuffed a potato sack with angry sticks that it's early morning in the frontier. And early, here, it doesn't mean your normal wake-up time. This isn't a gentle 9 a.m., roll over and check your phone kind of morning. This is a before sunrise morning, a time when the sky is still gray, like it hasn't decided whether it wants to wake up either. But unlike the sky, you don't get a choice. The day in the Wild West begins with sounds that don't care about your sleep schedule. A rooster screams like it's announcing the end of the world. A horse kicks its stall because it wants food. Someone outside drops a bucket with all the grace of a rock falling off a cliff. And then the cold sneaks under your blanket like an unwanted guest. You shiver awake. Your bed, which looked kind of cozy last night, is now poking you in about 7 different places. That's because your mattress is basically a big cloth bag filled with straw. Straw that hasn't been changed in months. Straw that is now flat, stiff, scratchy, and possibly home to a few bugs who also woke up early. You shift your weight a little. CRCK, the straw complains. Loudly, you pull the blanket tighter. It's a heavy wool blanket, good for warmth, but also heavy enough that it feels like someone placed a small cow on your legs. The blanket smells like smoke, sweat, and old wood. You tell yourself it's rustic. It helps. You slowly sit up, rubbing your eyes, trying to get used to the dim light slipping in through the gaps in the wooden wall. Yes, gaps. The walls are not sealed. Wind slips in easily. Dust slips in. Bugs slip in. Pretty much everything slips in except comfort. Your first thought of the day might be something like, wow, I need a shower. Well, too bad. There is no running water. No bathroom. No sink. If you want water, you have to go get it. From outside. In the cold. From a well. Or a river. Or a bucket someone filled yesterday. Maybe. You stand up, stretch a little, and crack your back in about 12 places. Congratulations, you have already had your first Wild West chiropractic session, free of charge. As your feet touch the wooden floor, it feels like ice. Not just cold, cold, cold. The kind of cold that jumps up your legs and makes your brain go, why am I alive? You take a step and wince because you forgot. The floorboards are uneven. One board is higher, one is lower, one creaks loudly, and one has a splinter waiting like a tiny ninja. You pray today is not the day you step on it. You open your cabin door, and the hinges make a noise like a dying accordion. Outside, the world is waking up. The sky is now a pale blue with hints of gold. Smoke rises from chimneys. Someone is already chopping wood, because of course they are. Life out here doesn't wait for anyone. The smell of breakfast fills the air, and by breakfast, I mean beans. Always beans. You might get salt pork if you're lucky. Maybe a slice of hard bread that could double as a self-defense weapon. Let's take a moment to appreciate how different this is from your modern morning. No coffee machine. No toaster. No fridge. No microwave humming like a tiny robot friend. Instead, cooking in the Wild West means getting a fire going. And getting a fire going means chopping wood, stacking it, lighting it, and then crying a little because smoke went into your eyes. Before you even think about breakfast, there are chores. Lots of chores, all before the sun fully rises. But we'll get to that in the next chapter. Right now, let's focus on the waking up part. Because even waking up in 1860 is an adventure. You splash some cold water on your face from a metal basin. The water is so cold it steals your breath for a second. Not refreshing, just rude. But it does wake you up. Next, you get dressed. And trust me, frontier clothing is not designed for comfort. Your shirt is rough. Your trousers are stiff. Your boots feel like they're made of wood and regret. And everything smells like smoke, because everything has smoke in it. You step outside again, finally awake, and look around the town. Dust hangs in the air like a soft morning cloud. A dog trots past, tail wagging, ready to start the day before you even finished waking up. A cowboy yawns loudly as he saddles his horse. Another man carries a bucket of water across the street, spilling half of it on his pants. He doesn't care. He's lived this life too long to care about being wet. A woman steps out of her small cabin and sweeps the front porch, even though dust will come back within 10 seconds. It's more about routine than results. The Wild West morning is a strange mix of beauty and struggle. The sky is breathtaking, the air is crisp, and everything feels peaceful. But underneath that peace, everything requires effort. Nothing is easy here. Not even waking up. For a modern person, this morning alone would be enough to start questioning life choices. Imagine losing your favorite pillow. Imagine no running water. Imagine breakfast that tastes the same every single day. Imagine your bed poking you so much it feels personal. And yet, settlers lived like this every day. They woke up early, worked hard, slept on rough beds, and somehow kept going. You stretch again, breathing in the cold morning air. You can hear the wind brushing across the empty land. You can hear chickens clucking, horses stomping, and someone already arguing about whose turn it is to fetch water. The world around you is simple, but tough. Quiet, but demanding. Peaceful, but harsh. This is life in the Wild West. And you've only been awake for 5 minutes. The real work hasn't even started yet. And trust me, once we step into the world of morning chores, you're going to learn exactly why a modern person wouldn't last 24 hours here. But for now, enjoy the early calm. The fresh air, the rising sun painting the land in soft yellows and golds. It's beautiful in a way that feels ancient and honest. This is the start of your day in 1860. And the Wild West is just getting warmed up. Take a breath, because the calm morning you just enjoyed is about to disappear very fast. In the Wild West, mornings were not gentle. They didn't care if you were tired, if you slept badly, or if you accidentally rolled onto a sharp piece of straw in the night and now have a scratch shaped like Texas on your back. Nope. Morning in the frontier meant one thing: chores. Lots of chores. And zero escape. Let's walk through your relaxing morning routine as a person living in 1860. Spoiler: it's going to feel like a full workout session before breakfast. First chore: starting the fire. You want to cook? Heat water? Feel your fingers again. You need fire. And fire in the Wild West does not magically appear with a cute little clicking sound like your modern stove. It needs wood. Dry wood. Chopped wood. The kind of wood you gather and split with your own hands. Because there is no electricity, no heaters, and no smart home to help you. You walk outside, still half asleep, carrying an axe that's heavier than your whole personality. The cold air slaps your face as you step into the yard. Birds are chirping, but not in a cute Disney movie way. It's 5 a.m. Wake up. Way. You place a chunk of wood on the chopping block. You raise the axe. You swing, and thunk, you miss. You hit the ground. Your hands vibrate like you just punched a washing machine. No worries. Try again. Swing 2. You aim better. Still miss slightly. The wood falls over in a sad little flop. Swing 3. Finally, you split the log in half. You feel proud, like a true pioneer, until you realize you need about 50 more pieces of wood. By the time you're done, your arms feel like noodles. You're sweating even though it's cold. And this is still the first task of the day. Second chore: fetching water. Now that you've chopped wood, you need water for cooking, drinking, washing, and everything else humans do. But here's the fun part. There is no sink, no tap, no water filter, just a well, or a river, or a creek, or a bucket that someone hopefully filled yesterday. You grab a metal bucket and start walking. It clanks against your leg. The handle bites into your fingers. The ground is hard, uneven, and rude. If there's a well nearby, lucky you. If not, the water source might be half a mile away. That's a long walk when you're hauling a heavy bucket. Once you reach the well, you drop the rope, hear the bucket splash, and then haul it back up. Sounds simple, right? Your arms disagree. The bucket weighs more every second as you pull it upward. Water drips down the rope, onto your shirt, into your boots. The wind laughs. The rope squeaks. Finally, you bring it up, and now you have to carry it all the way back without spilling too much. You walk carefully, step by step, and then, splat, your boot sinks in a mud patch you didn't see. The bucket tilts. You lose half your water. Congratulations. You played yourself. Back to the well you go. Third chore: feeding the animals. By the time you return, the animals are awake and very dramatic about their hunger. Chickens cluck loudly like you owe them money. Horses stomp the ground. The cow moos with the energy of a person yelling, "Where's my breakfast?" Animals are like children, cute, but extremely demanding. You throw feed to the chickens while trying not to get pecked. You pour water into a trough that leaks on one side. You haul hay to the horses while one horse stares at you like it knows you're weak. Then you milk the cow. Have you ever milked a cow? You sit on a tiny wooden stool that hurts your spine. You reach under the cow like you're defusing a bomb. You squeeze and pray. Milk starts to flow, and you feel proud, until the cow decides to swish its tail directly into your face. Yum. Fresh cow tail. Fourth chore: fixing something broken in the Wild West. Something is always broken. A loose fence post. A saddle strap tearing. A wagon wheel wobbling like it's drunk. A roof shingle falling off. A bucket with a hole in it. The barn door hinge making a noise like a haunted violin. You don't call a repairman. There is no hotline. No tutorial videos. No YouTube search like how to fix wagon wheel. Fast, easy beginner. You fix it yourself with tools that have been used so many times they look older than the sun. You hammer, tie, stitch, bend, and patch until it kind of works. Nothing in the Wild West is perfect. It just needs to survive another day. And so do you. Fifth chore: breakfast. Finally, you're ready for the most important meal of the day. And by most important, I don't mean delicious. Breakfast is practical. Usually, it's beans, sometimes eggs, sometimes hard biscuits that taste like they were baked during the dinosaur age. You heat them over the fire you worked so hard to start. The pot smokes. Your eyes water. The food burns a little, but you're starving, so you eat it anyway. And honestly, after all these chores, even burnt beans taste like victory. And all of this happens before the real work begins. You may think, okay, that was a lot, but at least the chores are done. My friend, know this was only the warm-up. The chores you just did are just the pre-game stretching. The Wild West daily grind hasn't even begun yet. Because after breakfast, you have farm labor, herding animals, tending crops, hunting, repairing wagons, gathering supplies, traveling miles on foot or horseback, watching for danger, and trying not to die from anything, including boredom, snakes, fires, and minor infections, but we'll get into all that later. For now, let's step back and think. Could a modern person really do all of this every morning? No alarms with snooze buttons. No coffee machine saving your soul. No comfy clothes. No warm shower. No shortcuts at all. Just pure work. Work from the moment you wake up. Work before the sun even touches your doorstep. The Wild West didn't wait for you. It didn't care if you were sleepy, tired, hungry, sore, or grumpy. If you didn't do the chores, you didn't survive. And we're only at the start of the day. As the morning stretched across the plains, the Wild West revealed one of its quietest dangers: the sun. Not the warm, cozy sunlight that slips through your curtains back home. No. This was a merciless, unfiltered sun, the kind that felt like it had no patience and even less mercy. Out here, shade wasn't something you walked into, it was something you searched for. A lone traveler stepping out into the morning light quickly learned that the West didn't do gentle introductions. The moment you left the safety of a tent or worn-out saloon porch, the heat wrapped around you like a heavy wool blanket, the kind soaked in boiling water. And in the dry desert towns, where the dust rose in thin clouds at every step, the sun baked everything. Wooden buildings, wagon wheels, tin coffee cups, and especially you'd up by late morning. You'd be sweating through your only shirt. Your lips would start cracking. The water in your canteen would feel more like warm soup than relief, and every breath tasted faintly like heated sand. Cowboys learned early what newcomers didn't. The West was thirsty, always thirsty, and much of surviving a single day depended on keeping yourself from drying out. People wrapped their faces in bandanas, wore wide-brimmed hats, and kept to the shade whenever possible. But you? If you were new, you'd be scorched before noon and wondering why the air itself felt angry. Even the animals knew better. Horses slowed their pace, cattle clustered near any hint of shade, and vultures circled lazily overhead, not because they were waiting, but because they knew patience always paid off in the West. As the sun climbed higher, the land reminded you of a simple truth. Out here, the world wasn't built for comfort, and it certainly wasn't built for you. Trying to last 24 hours, you'd barely make it through the morning. But if there was one thing you could always count on in the Wild West, it wasn't help or comfort or even safety. It was dust. Dust in your boots, dust in your hair, dust on your clothes, dust in places you didn't even realize dust could reach. The air was rarely still out here. A gentle breeze could turn into a swirling curtain of grit without warning, brushing across the plains like an invisible hand. And every traveler learned fast. You didn't just walk through the West, you wore it. Step outside a cabin in the morning, and a thin brown layer might already be waiting on your doorstep. Ride a horse for 10 minutes, and the dust would lift around you like smoke. Try to wash your face at a creek, if you were lucky enough to find one, and within moments the dryness in the air would pull the moisture away, leaving your skin feeling tight and thirsty. And the wind, carried everything. The smell of distant campfires, the faint echoes of someone hammering at a blacksmith shop, and always, more dust. Cowboys wrapped bandanas around their mouths not because it looked cool, but because breathing in the open air often felt like inhaling powdered earth. Travelers squinted against the wind, eyes stinging with grit. Newcomers usually coughed their way through their first day, as if the land was reminding them, "You don't belong here." Not yet. Inside the towns, the dust didn't stop. It napped on saloon counters, settled quietly on poker tables, and turned freshly swept floors dusty again within minutes. It painted everything in a dull, sunburned shade of brown. And at night, when the world finally cooled, you'd lay down hoping for peace. But even then, the dust slipped into your blanket folds, into your pillow stuffing, whispering a constant reminder of where you were. In the Wild West, the dust wasn't a problem to fix that it was. Simply another resident, older and more stubborn than all the others. A companion that followed you, clung to you, and slowly wore you down. Surviving a full 24 hours out here. Most people underestimated just how tiring a single day of breathing the West could be. If you ever want to know what real thirst feels like, try living just one day in the Wild West. Not city thirst, where you forget your water bottle at home. Not gym thirst, where you think, wow, I really need a drink. No, this was the kind of thirst that sat on your shoulders like a heavy blanket, slow and draining. The kind that made your tongue feel like it was coated in dry sand. Water wasn't something you casually sipped here. It was something you hoped for, searched for, saved, and sometimes fought over. Streams ran low, rivers changed course, and wells were always a gamble. Point 1 week, they might give you clean, cool water. The next week, they might taste like dirt, minerals, or something you really didn't want to think about. Most folks carried canteens, but those didn't last long. A few hours under the sun turned the water warm, and sometimes it picked up the flavor of the metal container. Still, warm metallic water was better than nothing. And in the West, better than nothing was often the best you were going to get. Travelers sometimes rode miles just to refill. Imagine that. Your lips cracking, your throat stiff, your whole body hot, and the nearest water is 4 hours away. And if you got there and the water was muddy, well, you shrugged and drank it anyway. People today talk a lot about hydration reminders. In the Wild West, you didn't need reminders. Your whole body reminded you. The dry wind reminded you. Even the land reminded you. Cracked soil, brittle plants, dust swirling like brown smoke. Animals suffered too. Horses needed far more water than humans, and sometimes keeping your horse alive meant you drank a little less. And you needed your horse. No water for the horse meant no miles under you. Saloons did offer drinks, but whiskey didn't exactly fix dehydration. If anything, it made it worse. Still, people drank it because it was there, and because it didn't go bad the way water sometimes did. And at night, when the sun finally dropped and the world cooled, you might think thirst would ease, but it didn't. Your body still ached from the day's dryness. Your tongue still stuck to your teeth. Your hands still felt stiff from gripping reins, tools, or canteens. You want to know why a modern person wouldn't last 24 hours here? Because we're used to opening a fridge or turning on a tap. Out here, there was no tap, fridge, just a bottle that emptied too fast, a sun that never showed mercy, and a land that didn't care if you were thirsty. The West wasn't trying to be cruel. It was just honest, and the truth was simple. Every drop mattered. If you think the Wild West was only about cowboys, dusty towns, and old saloons, well, you're missing the other half of the story, the half with teeth and claws and bad attitudes. Because out here, humans were not the only ones trying to survive. The land was full of animals that lived by very simple rules. Eat, not be eaten, and stay out of the sun when possible. Honestly, pretty reasonable rules, but they could make your day a lot harder. Let's start with the rattlesnakes. They didn't chase you. They didn't jump at you. They mostly just minded their own business. But the problem was their business was basically everywhere. Under rocks, in tall grass, by your boots, under your bedroll. Places you really didn't want a rattlesnake to be. Cowboys sometimes woke up, stretched their arms, and then froze because something next to them was making that unmistakable chch sound. Nothing ruins a peaceful morning like realizing you almost rolled over a venomous reptile. Then you had wolves. Now wolves didn't usually attack humans, but they were always watching. That you'd see glowing eyes at the edge of your campfire light, quiet, patient, deciding if you were interesting or not. Most nights they kept their distance, but hearing a whole pack howl across the plains, let's just say it didn't help anyone sleep deeper. And we can't forget the mountain lions, the silent hunters, the you won't hear me until I'm 2 feet away experts. People knew not to wander near rocky cliffs alone because mountain lions were like the ninjas of the West, quiet, quick, and very, very confident in themselves. Even smaller animals made life difficult. Scorpions hid inside boots, so every morning you had to shake your shoes like you were trying to get rid of imaginary coins. Coyotes stole food. Bison crossed paths without caring who was standing there, and prairie dogs dug holes everywhere. turning the ground into a dangerous minefield for horses. But maybe the worst neighbors were the mosquitoes, tiny, buzzing, determined. They didn't care if you were tired, thirsty, or trying to watch the sunset. They came in squads, like little flying troublemakers, and they always went for your ears first, just to make sure you knew they were there. People slept with blankets pulled over their faces, hats tipped low, handkerchiefs wrapped around their necks. Anything to keep the bugs away. Anything to get just a little bit of rest out of. So yeah, the Wild West had animals. Not the cute, soft, I want to cuddle this kind. The please don't come closer kind. The kind that reminded you that you were a visitor in their world, not the other way around. A modern person, used to pest control and animal shelters and bug spray, would take one look at all this and say, yeah, nope. And they'd be right, because out here, every step, every nap, every moment, something wild was watching. If you're imagining big, warm meals in the Wild West, plates filled with fresh bread, juicy meat, and maybe a little dessert, I'm sorry to break your heart, because eating out here wasn't about taste. It wasn't even about comfort. It was about not starving. A lot of food in the West was simple, like, very simple. Beans, biscuits, more beans, maybe some salted meat, and if you were feeling lucky, yep, even more beans. Cowboys didn't exactly start their mornings with fancy breakfasts. Most days began with a pot of thick, smoky coffee that could wake up a sleeping rock. People joked that the coffee was strong enough to stand on its own, or that it could clean rust off a horseshoe. But when you were cold and tired, it did the job. Lunch was usually whatever you could carry. Hard biscuits that felt like eating a rock, dried beef so salty it made your eyes water, or maybe a piece of fruit, if fruit existed, anywhere near you, which it usually didn't. Dinner was the big meal, which sounds exciting until you realize the big meal was just beans with a different angle, sometimes with bacon, sometimes without bacon, but mostly just beans refusing to retire. And don't forget jerky. Jerky was everywhere, tough, chewy, stringy. You didn't bite jerky, you negotiated with it. You took a piece and chewed for so long that your jaw got tired before you did. Fresh vegetables? Rare. Fresh fruit? Even rarer. Cold drinks? Only if you stood in a river holding your cup and praying. In many places, food spoiled fast. The heat didn't help. Flies didn't help. And the lack of proper storage definitely didn't help. People salted meat, smoked meat, dried meat, anything to keep it from going bad. And even then, sometimes it still went bad. Travelers kept an eye out for anything edible. Wild berries, rabbits, fish, anything that wouldn't fight back too hard. But hunting wasn't guaranteed, and fishing took time someone might not have. Saloons served meals, but even those weren't exactly five-star dining. A plate of stew could be delicious, or it could taste like someone boiled old leather with a carrot. You never really knew until it was too late. And remember, there were days when you didn't eat at all, when your pack ran low, or the town was far away, or nothing grew nearby. Out here, hunger followed you like a quiet shadow. Imagine someone today, used to snacks, stores, delivery apps, trying to handle that one missed lunch, and we already feel dramatic. Now picture missing lunch and dinner, and maybe breakfast, and then chewing on a hard biscuit like it's the last treasure on earth. Food in the Wild West wasn't about flavored, it was survival. Plain, tough, dusty survival. And honestly, one day of that would be enough to make any modern person say, yep, I'm going home. If you think sleeping in the Wild West meant lying under a calm sky, listening to crickets, wrapped in a warm blanket like some peaceful movie scene, well, not quite. Sleep in the West was a chore. A challenge. A nightly battle between you and basically everything. Let's start with the bed, or whatever counted as a bed. Some nights you slept outdoors, on hard ground. Sometimes on a thin bedroll that felt just slightly softer than the dirt under it. Sometimes on the wooden floor of a cabin, which somehow felt even harder than the ground. And if you stayed at a cheap hotel in a frontier town, the mattress might sag so much that you sank to the middle like a bean sliding into a bowl. But even if the bed wasn't comfy, you might think, fine, I'll still sleep. Except, no, because the Wild West had other plans. For one thing, there was noise. Night wasn't quiet. Wolves howled far away. Coyotes yipped closer. Horses snorted and shuffled. Wind pushed through cracks in walls and made a soft, tired whistle. And if you stayed in a town, oh boy, saloons stayed open late. Someone was always shouting about a card game. Boots clomped across wooden boardwalks. Doors slammed out. A drunk cowboy somewhere tried to sing a song he definitely did not know. And through all of this, you were lying there, half awake, half asleep, thinking, why is everyone awake? Please go to bed. Then there were the bugs, the small, annoying ones that buzzed by your ear at exactly the wrong time. Mosquitoes, flies, beetles that crawled into places you didn't want them to be. Even indoors, insects found ways to join the party. You could wrap yourself in a blanket like a burrito and still feel something tiny walking across your arm at 2 a.m. And let's not forget the cold. The desert didn't stay warm after sunset. Once the sun dipped, the air cooled fast if you didn't have a good fire or enough blankets. You shivered your way through the night, trying to hold on to whatever body heat you could. But the opposite was true too. In some areas, the nights were hot and sticky, the kind of heat that made the air feel heavy, where lying still only made you sweat more. Then came the worry, because the West was unpredictable. You didn't sleep too deeply because you had to stay alert. Bandits were real, strangers were unpredictable. Animals wandered close that a simple crack of a twig could make your heart jump. People slept lightly, like their brains kept one ear open all night. And if you were camping with others, someone usually stayed awake to keep watch. Not because they wanted to, but because falling asleep with no one watching was a little too risky for comfort. In towns, the danger changed. You locked your door, you kept your boots close, and you hoped the people in the next room over weren't troublemakers. Frontier hotels were thin-walled places where you heard everything. Every cough, every footstep, every whispered argument. Even the bed sheets weren't exactly luxurious. They weren't soft cotton. They were rough, scratchy, washed when possible, and sometimes they smelled like the last 10 travelers who slept there by the time morning came. Most people woke up stiff, tired, and still sleepy, but at least the sun meant the dangers of the night were over. Well, until the next night. A modern person used to quiet bedrooms. Air conditioning, soft pillows, and mattresses with 5 comfort layers would probably make it about 20 minutes before saying, nope, I'm checking out. Because in the Wild West, sleep wasn't rest. It was survival. You didn't lay your head down for comfort. You laid it down because your body demanded it, even if the world around you refused to make it easy. And somehow, people still got up every morning, brushed themselves off, and did it all over again. When you picture the Wild West, you might imagine cowboys looking cool in dusty hats, long coats, and shiny boots. Maybe a bandana around the neck, maybe a leather vest, maybe a nice belt with a big buckle. And sure, it looked stylish, but wearing all that, living in it, working in it? Yeah, it wasn't exactly cozy pajama time. Clothes in the Wild West had one goal: survive the land. Not comfort, not softness, not fashion, though people still tried their best. Everything you wore was basically armor against dust, sun, cold, thorns, bugs, and sometimes other people. Let's start with the boots. Cowboy boots were tough, tall, and pointy. Good for riding. Great for keeping snakes away. But comfortable? Not really. The leather was stiff, the soles were unforgiving, and the inside felt like someone made a shoe out of a wooden plank. You couldn't just slip them on. You had to commit to them. And once they were on, walking long distances felt like your feet were sending angry letters to your brain. But cowboys didn't complain much. They just walked, differently, a kind of slow, careful stomp that said, yes, my feet hurt, but I'm pretending they don't. Then you had the pants. Thick canvas or rough wool. Not stretchy. Not breathable. Not the kind of pants you could sit cross-legged in unless you wanted to create new pain in places that didn't deserve pain. They tore easily from thorns, so people wore chaps. Leather covers that protected the legs. Useful, yes. Comfortable? Imagine wearing hot leather curtains on a summer day. Yeah, the shirts weren't much better. Most were made of coarse cotton or wool, and after a day of sweat, dust, and riding, they felt like sandpaper. You didn't wash your clothes often because water was precious and soap wasn't cheap. The dust stayed, the sweat stayed, and the shirt slowly turned into something that looked like it lived a harder life than you did. Now, let's talk about the hats. Cowboy hats were great for blocking the sun, but they were heavy and hot. And if the wind picked up, whoosh, there goes your hat rolling across the prairie like a runaway wheel. Most people spent half their day adjusting their hat to keep it from flying away and the other half complaining about how hot their head felt underneath it. But the real champion of discomfort? The underwear. People today have soft fabric, perfect fits, breathable materials. In the Wild West, underwear was usually wool or stiff cotton, scratchy, thick, designed by someone who clearly hated comfort. Everything chafed, everything rubbed. Every step felt like a reminder that smooth fabric had not been invented yet. And then there were coats, long duster coats made from heavy canvas or oiled cloth. They kept the rain off, but wearing one felt like hugging a hot tin all day, especially with the sun blasting down. But take it off, and suddenly the wind and dust attacked you. So you had to pick your suffering. Women didn't have it easier. Long skirts tangled in bushes. Layers of cloth overheated the body. Corsets squeezed everything inside like someone trying to shut an overstuffed suitcase. Walking fast was hard. Running was basically impossible. And riding a horse and all. That fabric? That was its own level of difficulty. Even kids in the West wore tiny versions of the same uncomfortable clothes. Little boots, stiff shirts, wool socks that felt like wearing a cactus in soft cartoon pajamas. Just miniature misery. And let's not forget the smell. Clothes soaked up sweat, smoke, animal smell, and dust. After one long day, your outfit wasn't just clothing. It was a complete history book of everywhere you'd been. Every now and then, someone washed their clothes in a river, beat them against a rock, and hung them to dry in the sun. But even then, the fabric came out stiff, crispy, and about as flexible as cardboard. A modern person today, used to hoodies, soft shirts, stretchy pants, comfy shoes, would probably lose their mind after 2 hours in Wild West clothing. Imagine trading your sneakers for boots that feel like medieval torture devices, and your soft t-shirt for a wool shirt that scratches you just for breathing wrong. The truth is simple. Nothing in the Wild West wanted you to relax. Not the land, not the weather, and definitely not the clothes. If you survived the dust, the heat, the animals, and the thirst, your own outfit might be the thing that finally broke your spirit. Because in the West, you didn't dress to look good. You dressed to survive. Even if every part of your body disagreed with the idea. If there's one thing that would shock a modern person in the Wild West, besides the dust, the danger, the animals, the boots, and basically everything else, it would be the medicine. Because in the Wild West, getting sick or injured wasn't just a small problem. It was a life problem. Let's start with doctors. Or, well, doctors. Some were trained, some weren't. Some learned from books, some learned from a guy who once knew a doctor. And some practiced medicine because no one told them not to. A doctor's tools were simple: a saw, bandages, whiskey, and a lot of hope. If you had a fever, you'd get told to drink warm tea or lie still and let the body fight it. If you had a stomach problem, they'd give you bitter herbs or something that tasted like sadness. If you had an infection, well, good luck. Antibiotics didn't exist. Clean water wasn't always available. Sterilization was basically wipe it on your shirt and keep going. Even tiny injuries could turn dangerous. A small cut could get infected, an infected cut could spread, and before you knew it, things got serious. People used homemade remedies: onions for coughs, warm cloths for pain, mystery tonics from traveling salesmen who promised miracles. A lot of those tonics were just alcohol with fancy labels, but people still bought them because they had nothing else. Breaking a bone, that was a whole adventure. You'd get it wrapped tightly. You were told to stop moving, and then you prayed it healed straight. Sometimes it did. Sometimes it didn't. No X-raised at no casts. Just don't touch it, and hope your body knew what it was doing. Teeth were another nightmare. Dentists were rare, and when one did show up in a town, people lined up outside like it was a concert. But there was no anesthesia and numbing shots. Just someone with strong arms pulling your tooth out while you squeezed the chair and tried not to cry in front of strangers. Some people drank whiskey first so they felt less pain. But honestly, it probably only made them brave enough to sit down. Gunshot wounds were even worse. Doctors did their best, but with no proper tools, no clean surgical rooms, and no real medicine. Many people didn't make it. Even a small bullet wound could be deadly if the infection spread. And sickness, forget it. The flu, pneumonia, smallpox, cholera. These illnesses hit communities hard. People passed them around fast because small towns had close spaces and not a lot of help. You might think, well, if I get sick, I'll stay home. Sure, but homes didn't have soft beds, or warm tea, or medicine cabinets filled with helpful stuff. You just lay there under a scratchy blanket, hoping your body didn't give up. Even childbirth was dangerous. Many women didn't survive it, and babies didn't always survive either. There were no hospitals, no monitors, no emergency care, just a midwife, a few cloths, and the strength of whoever was giving birth. People today complain about slow pharmacies. In the Wild West, there were no pharmacies, just shelves of odd powders and bottles that claimed to fix everything from hedekesto said nesto problems of the blood. Half of them didn't work, and the other half tasted worse than the sickness. Imagine a modern person out there, used to band-aids, painkillers, antibiotics, clean clinics, and actual doctors who know what they're doing. One splinter, one twisted ankle, one fever, one stomach problem. Any of those could ruin their whole day. Or their whole life. Medicine in the Wild West wasn't comforting. It wasn't easy. It wasn't safe. It was rough, risky, and sometimes terrifying. And yet, people survived. They pushed through sickness, worked through pain, and hoped each sunrise meant they were getting better. But for a modern person, one look at a doctor's tools, one taste of a miracle tonic, one dental visit with no anesthesia, and they'd be running for the nearest time machine. But if the Wild West had a personality, the weather would be the moody, unpredictable friend who changes emotions every 5 minutes and expects you to keep up. Because out here, the weather wasn't just weather. It was a challenge. A test. Sometimes even a warning. Let's start with the heat. The middle of the day heat that didn't just sit on your skin. It reached inside you. The sun beat down so hard that even the rocks seemed tired. Your shirt stuck to your back, your lips cracked, and the air felt like someone heated it in an oven and forgot to turn it off. You'd ride or walk for hours, squinting at the horizon, wondering why the sun refused to take a break. Sweat didn't even help. It dried too fast, and everything around you shimmered like the land was breathing hot air. Then, without warning, the heat could disappear, and the cold took over. Desert nights dropped fast, in gentle transition. One moment you're warm. The next you feel like someone opened a giant freezer door. If you didn't have a good fire, or enough blankets, or the right clothes, you spent the night shaking so hard you could hear your own teeth tapping. And winter in the West. Don't even ask. Snowstorms covered everything. Wind whipped across open plains with a force that felt personal. You couldn't see far, couldn't walk fast, and sometimes couldn't walk at all. Now let's talk about storms. The kind of storms that rolled across open land like giant walls of gray. Lightning cracked across the sky so bright it lit up everything like a camera flash. Thunder shook the air deep in your chest. Rain fell sideways, slapping the ground, pouring off roofs, turning the road into thick mud that swallowed wagon wheels whole. Imagine trying to sleep through the thin tinter, a wooden cabin with a leaky roof. You're lying there, listening to every raindrop, hoping nothing breaks, and hoping the wind stops pushing your walls like it's testing their strength. Speaking of wind, the wind in the West had attitude. Some days it was gentle and cool. Most days it was strong, pushing dust into your eyes, sand into your clothes, and thoughts out of your head. Your hat? Forget it. The wind collected hats the way kids collect toys, fast and without guilt. And then there were dust storms, the real troublemakers. You'd see a brown cloud on the horizon, growing bigger, rolling closer, and you knew this was going to be bad. Dust filled your mouth, your nose, your ears, your clothes. Horses spooked. People covered their faces with bandanas and tried to breathe through fabric that didn't help much. When the storm finally passed, you looked like someone dipped you in flour. Everything tasted gritty, and you could feel dust between your teeth no matter how many times you spit. But weather wasn't just annoying. It was dangerous. Heat stroke, hypothermia, getting caught in a flash flood, losing your way in a blizzard, running out of water in the desert. These weren't rare events. They happened all the time. And people had no weather app, no forecast, no radar. Their weather report was basically, look at the sky and guess. Imagine telling a modern person that. Your phone won't warn you. Your house won't protect you. Good luck. 1 hour of Wild West weather would make anyone today say, nope, absolutely not. Because out here, the weather didn't care if you were tired or hungry or trying to relax. It had its own plans. Sometimes peaceful, sometimes cruel, always unpredictable. The West wasn't just wild because of people. It was wild because the sky itself didn't play by any rules. If there's one thing a modern person takes for granted, it's water, clean water, cold water. Water that comes out of a tap with a polite "here you go." In the Wild West? Yeah. No. Water was a whole adventure. A stressful one. Let's start with the obvious problem. There wasn't much of it. Large parts of the West were dry, hot, and empty. Rivers were far apart. Streams dried up. Wells didn't always reach anything useful. Some days you walked or rode for hours and didn't see even a puddle. People planned their routes around water. Not towns. Not food. Not safety. Just water. You could go without food for a while, but one day without water under that sun felt like your brain was slowly turning into bread dough. Cowboys carried canteens, but they emptied fast. And when a canteen ran dry, you didn't panic. You really panicked. Then there was another problem. When you finally found water, it wasn't always good water. Some ponds were muddy. Some had dead animals floating in them. Some were full of bacteria long before anyone knew what bacteria was. People drank it anyway. Because when you're thirsty enough, you don't question the flavor. And oh, the flavors, some water tasted like metal, some tasted like dirt, some tasted like something that never should have existed at all. But out here, you didn't drink water for pleasure. You drank it to stay alive. Even if it made your stomach ask questions. Boiling water was possible, but not always easy. You needed firewood, you needed time, and you needed a clean pot. All things the West didn't always offer. So most of the time, you just drank whatever you found and hoped your body didn't regret it. Now let's talk about travelers. Pioneers crossing the plains with wagons had to ration their water carefully. Some families carried barrels. They guarded those barrels like treasure. If one leaked or cracked, the whole trip became a nightmare. Some groups followed rivers, but rivers weren't always friendly. They flooded, they dried up, they changed course, they hit quicksand, and sometimes they were too strong for horses to cross. And if you camped near a water source, you had to share it with, well, everyone. Wild animals drank there. Snakes cooled off there. Insects hovered around it. Sometimes another group of travelers was already there, filling their buckets and giving you that polite but not so polite look that said, don't take too much. Even in towns, water wasn't perfect. Wells got contaminated. Baths were rare. Bathwater was shared. Yes, shared, and not always in the order you hoped for. Let's just say the first person in the tub had the best experience. People didn't drink water all the time either. Sometimes they drank coffee or watered-down whiskey or strange homemade drinks that tasted like a dare, because water wasn't just precious, it was risky. A modern person today, used to filtered water, bottled water, sparkling water, water with fruit flavor, water that arrives at your doorstep in a nicely designed box. Yeah, that person wouldn't last long. The moment they bent down to drink from a muddy pond and something wiggled in the water, they'd be on the fastest horse headed back to the present day. In the Wild West, finding water was survival, and drinking it was bravery. Every sip came with a tiny gamble, but without it, you weren't making it past noon. If you thought the Wild West was dangerous because of bandits, gunfights, and rattlesnakes hiding in your boots, well, yes, those things are all terrifying. But there's something even scarier waiting for you out here on the frontier: the medical care. Let's set things gently now, as we always do. Imagine the wind moving softly across the open plains, carrying the dusty smell of sun-baked earth. Imagine a quiet little frontier town, its wooden buildings faded by years of too much sun and not enough rain. The lamps glow warm in the windows, and the air cools slowly as evening arrives. That you're tired from another long day in the Wild West. A day that probably included running away from something, or someone, or your own bad decisions. Your legs ache, your back hurts, and you're thinking, maybe I should see a doctor. And that, my friend, is exactly why you wouldn't last 24 hours out here. Because the doctor in a Wild West town isn't exactly, how do we say this kindly, reliable, skilled, qualified, trained? No, none of those. Most doctors on the frontier were basically guys who owned a bag full of metal tools and had the confidence to say, sure, I can fix that. Let's walk into one of their offices now. Don't worry, we're moving slowly, step by sleepy step. The wooden stairs creak under your boots as you climb. A sign hangs on the door: doctor, surgery, dentistry, also sewing boots. Very promising. Inside, things do not improve. There's a strong smell of whiskey, which you quickly realize is not for drinking. It's for disinfecting wounds. Except, most doctors don't actually disinfect anything yet. The idea of germs hasn't taken over America at this time because many people think it's too silly to believe invisible creatures can make you sick. So the whiskey is mostly for you. To help you not think about what's about to happen, you sit on a wobbly wooden chair as the doctor shuffles toward you. He is wearing an apron that might once have been white, but is now a confusing collection of stains that tell their own tragic stories. He looks you over, squinting like he's examining a farm animal he doesn't want to buy. So, he says, where does it hurt? You tell him. Maybe your arm is bruised. Maybe you twisted your ankle. Maybe you got scratched by a cactus because you weren't paying attention. Or maybe you just want painkillers. Either way, the doctor nods, reaches into his bag, and pulls out a saw. You panic. Of course you do. But he laughs softly and says, relax. I only use this when things are real bad. Then he sets it down on the table next to you, right beside a pair of pliers. Yes. The Wild West doctor's toolbox looks exactly like the hardware kit someone might use to fix a fence. And sometimes it did come from a hardware store. When supplies were short, which was always, doctors improvised. Need a tooth pulled. Pliers. Need a bullet dug out. A knife that looks like it came from a kitchen. Need stitches. Regular thread from the general store. Need an amputation? Yup. The saw. And anesthesia? Forget it. Your options are bite down on a leather strap, drink whiskey until you forget your own name, or pass out from fear before the doctor starts, which honestly might be the best option. Let's paint the scene softly, gently, as always. The lamplight flickers. The doctor wipes his tools with a cloth that is definitely not clean. Outside, you hear a horse snort and shake its head, probably judging you for coming here. You try to tell yourself that maybe you're overreacting. Maybe everything will be okay. But the doctor says, all right, let's get to work. And you know instantly that everything will not be okay. That if you had a simple infection, maybe from a small cut or blister, the doctor might tell you to pour whiskey on it, wrap it in cloth, and hope it clears up. Antibiotics don't exist yet, which means small things can turn into big things very quickly. Even a scratch from a rusty nail could turn into a life-threatening problem. If you had a fever, the doctor might bleed you, literally drain blood from your arm because he thinks your body is too hot. If that sounds insane, that's because it is. But bleeding was very popular back then. People really believed it worked. If your tooth hurts, he grabs the pliers. There is no warning, no numbing, no slow countdown like a modern dentist. Just yank. Congratulations. You now hate life. And if you're unlucky enough to have a bullet wound, which was extremely common out here, the doctor will dig around in your flesh with a knife, hoping to find the bullet before infection sets in. He might not even wash the knife first. Can you imagine the pain? The shock? The smell? Yes, the smell. Frontier clinics didn't exactly have strict cleaning schedules, but let's soften the edges here. The lamplight is warm. The doctor hums to himself like he's sewing a quilt instead of cutting into a human being. Outside, the night settles gently over the town. Crickets start singing. The sky fills with stars that you're sweating. The doctor pours whiskey onto your wound and onto himself because he needs it too. Times are tough. It's the Wild West. The truth is, the reason you wouldn't last 24 hours out here isn't just the danger, the heat, the gunfights, or the wildlife. That it's the simple fact that if anything, literally anything, goes wrong with your body, your odds of seeing tomorrow drop dramatically. At a twisted ankle, could get infected. A broken bone, could heal wrong or not at all. A tooth infection, deadly without treatment. A deep cut might mean amputation. And remember, the saw is still sitting right there. This chapter isn't meant to scare you too much. It's a bedtime story after all, but it is meant to remind you how wildly different life was back then. Modern people are used to clean hospitals, trained doctors, and medicines that actually work. Frontier folks? They had bravery, whiskey, and hope. And sometimes, that was enough. The night grows deeper now. The doctor sends you away with a piece of cloth tied around your arm, a bottle of something that smells like sadness, and instructions that basically translate to, good luck out there. You step outside into the cool darkness. The stars shine overhead. The boardwalk creaks under your feet. The town is quiet, peaceful, dangerous, and you realize something. Out here, survival isn't guaranteed. Not even close. But for now, take a deep breath. Let the night settle around you. Let the sounds fade and the calm return. You survived the doctor. That alone is a victory in the Wild West. Let's step back into the Wild West now, slowly, gently, like we're sneaking past a sleeping rattlesnake. You've just survived the frontier doctor, which is honestly impressive, and now you make your way outside. The air is cool. The wooden boardwalk sighs under your boots. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks once and immediately regrets it because sound travels far at night out here. It should feel peaceful, right? Quiet, calm. But tonight, the sky has other plans, because out here, the weather itself can wipe you out faster than any outlaw. And that's exactly what Chapter 16 is about. Why the Wild West climate would absolutely destroy a modern person within 24 hours. Let's take a deep breath first. In out good. Now imagine this. You're standing at the edge of the dusty street. The wind lifts tiny grains of sand and tosses them in your face. Not enough to hurt, just enough to remind you that nature is always watching you, judging your soft skin and your air-conditioned lifestyle. The West wasn't one single kind of weather. It was all kinds of weather trying to kill you at once. Heat waves, dust storms, blizzards, lightning, flash floods. Pick any disaster. The West had it, and the worst part? You never got a warning. No weather app saying hot today, bro. No emergency alert. No cute little radar map with green and red blobs. You just looked at the sky and thought, that cloud looks angry. Let's start with the heat, because that one hits you first. Picture a sun that is 3 times too bright and definitely too close to your face. In the Wild West, noon wasn't just warm, it was punishment. The kind of heat that cooks you slowly like a rotisserie chicken. Sweat doesn't even help because the wind dries it instantly. You become a walking piece of jerky. People carried water everywhere. But even then, it wasn't enough. You're used to hydration reminders popping up on your phone. Out here, nobody reminds you except your own cracking lips and the fact that you're starting to see hallucinations of iced coffee. And that's just the daytime. When night comes, the temperature crashes so fast it feels personal. One minute you're melting, the next minute you're freezing. The desert has zero chill. Literally, frontier folks knew this. They wrapped themselves in blankets, animal skins, whatever they had. You probably packed one hoodie because you thought the West would be kind of warm. Now you're shivering, hugging yourself, regretting every decision you've ever made. But wait, we're not done. The wind starts to build. It begins as a soft breeze brushing against your face, kind of peaceful. You almost enjoy it. But then it grows stronger and stronger, and suddenly you're leaning forward at a weird angle, trying not to fall over while the wind tries to snatch your hat, your dignity, and possibly your entire body. Dust storms were brutal out here. The sky could go dark in the middle of the day. Sand would get into your eyes, ears, clothes, mouth, soul, everywhere. If you were outside during one, you had 2 options. Run, which is hard when you can't see anything. Cover your face and hope, which is hard because dust tastes terrible. Sounds fun, right? But the weather roulette continues, because now the sky starts to rumble a little. A low growl rolls across the land like a warning from nature itself. Frontier storms weren't the gentle, moody, romantic kind you read about in books. These storms were loud enough to shake windows and bright enough to blind you. Lightning cracked across the sky like the heavens had snapped in half. Rain poured down so fast that dry riverbeds transformed into deadly flash floods within minutes. Imagine you're walking along some canyon path, minding your own business, admiring the scenery. Then suddenly, roar, a wave of muddy water comes speeding toward you like it wants to fight. You can't outrun it. You can only climb, pray, or accept that you made some poor choices. Now, if you happen to be in a colder part of the West, congratulations, you get a whole different flavor of danger. Winter storms didn't play around. Blizzards could freeze your eyelashes, your fingertips, your hopes and dreams. Getting lost in the snow was incredibly common because the world turned into one big white blur. You couldn't see 5 feet ahead. Horses refused to move. People tied ropes around their waists just to find their way between buildings. And yes, people still had to do chores during all this. Imagine chopping firewood while a blizzard slaps you repeatedly in the face. But let's pull the camera back a little. Slow the scene down. Soft breeze now. The worst of the storm has passed. Clouds drift overhead like sleepy giants. The earth is quiet again, and you're standing there, blinking, covered in dust, sweat, or possibly snow. asking yourself why on earth people chose to live here. Frontier folks had a different kind of toughness. Not gym tough or I do cold plunges tough. Real tough. They read the sky the way we read messages. They could smell a storm coming, feel temperature changes in their bones, hear danger in the wind. You've been here less than a day and the weather has already tried to erase you from the timeline. But that's the beauty of bedtime history. We get to explore all this from a safe place. You're not actually in a dust storm. You're not melting under the sun. You're not freezing under the stars, that you're just imagining it, quietly, comfortably, wrapped in your blanket. Here, the weather is only a story. A gentle reminder of how fragile we'd be in a world with no modern comforts. No houses with insulation. No climate control. No waterproof jackets. No heated cars. Just you, the sky, and whatever mood it's in today. As the chapter slows down, picture the sky clearing now. The heat fading. The wind calming. The stars returning one by one, soft and steady, like pinholes in a dark curtain. You made it through the frontier weather, barely. But you survived another chapter of the Wild West. And remember, out here, nature wasn't just a background. It was the boss. Let's drift back into the Wild West now. Slowly, quietly, like you're tiptoeing past a sleeping cowboy who snores loud enough to vibrate the windows. That you've survived the doctor, that you've survived the weather. But now, my friend, you face something even more dangerous. Frontier food. Yes. The legendary Wild West diet. The thing that kept tough cowboys alive, but would probably take out a modern person in less than 24 hours. Imagine the scene. Evening has settled over the land like a big, dusty blanket. Lamps glow behind saloon windows. You can hear a soft harmonica somewhere, maybe played by someone who only knows one song. Crickets hum. The sky is a deep violet. Your stomach growls. That it doesn't just growl, it complains. You think, maybe I should get something to eat. Oh no. That's where the real danger begins. Let's walk slowly into a typical frontier kitchen or camp. There's a smell in the air, part smoke, part beans, part something mysterious that probably shouldn't be eaten, but will be eaten anyway. Cowboys didn't have fancy menus. They didn't have snack bars or protein shakes or gluten-free options. They had beans, salted meat, hard biscuits, coffee, and more beans. Sometimes they also had dried fruit. But it wasn't the cute little dried mango slices you buy at the store. This was fruit that tasted like sadness and grit. Now, let's talk about that famous cowboy meal, hardtack. This bread is a small, pale, rock-hard square that looks like it was baked during the creation of the universe and then forgotten about. If you bite into it directly, you'll lose a tooth. If you soak it in water, it becomes soft enough to survive, but still tastes like nothing. Like edible cardboard. Like regret. Then there's jerky, dried meat so tough you need the jaw strength of a crocodile to chew it. Modern jerky is soft and flavorful. Frontier jerky was like chewing on a boot someone found in the desert. But wait, the food struggles aren't just about flavor. Oh no, this is a bedtime story, so we'll go slow, but we're also going to be honest, gently. Food safety wasn't really a thing. No refrigerators, no expiration dates, no hygiene rules, no wash your hands before cooking. People barely washed their hands after cooking. Meat spoiled fast. Sometimes people ate it anyway. Milk soured instantly in the heat. Butter melted the second you turned your back. And don't even ask about vegetables. Half the towns didn't have them. Imagine ordering a salad in a Wild West saloon. The bartender would stare at you like you asked him to sing opera. Let's sit around a cowboy campfire for a moment. The flames dance softly, sending sparks up toward the stars. The night smells like wood smoke. The coffee is boiling in a black pot that has never been washed. Ever. It might be older than the entire state you're currently in. Cowboys drank this coffee constantly, thick, bitter, and so strong it could probably remove paint from a wagon. You, a modern person with a sensitive stomach? One sip and your soul would leave your body. Now you look down at your plate, a pile of beans. Beans cooked in a pot that has been used for beans. Every day? Forever. The pot has more history than some countries. Cowboys ate beans because they were cheap, easy to transport, and hard to mess up. But eating beans 3 times a day, every day, while riding a horse under the hot sun, yeah, your stomach would not make it. And we're not even talking about the water yet. The water, frontier water, wasn't clean. It wasn't filtered. It wasn't purified. It came from whatever river, stream, or muddy puddle people found. Sometimes it tasted like dirt. Sometimes it tasted like old leaves. Sometimes it tasted like horse. You would drink it once and immediately miss your modern filtered water bottle. But the real moment you wouldn't survive is breakfast. Picture yourself waking up at a camp. The sun is barely up. The cowboy cook, known as the cookie, slams a metal spoon against a pot and says, "Breakfast." You stretch. You yawn. You walk over. And he hands you burnt biscuits, overcooked bacon, more beans, coffee strong enough to make your hair stand up. That's the menu. That's the entire menu. Every day. If you were lucky enough to live in town instead of a camp, maybe the general store had canned peaches or molasses. But even then, you had to open those cans with a giant knife, hoping you didn't slice your hand open and end up back at the doctor we met in chapter 15. Now, let's gently stroll into a saloon. The swinging doors make that whoosh sound. Inside, the air is heavy with cigar smoke. A pianist plinks away at a tune. People sit at wooden tables eating whatever meal is being served today. Maybe it's stew. That sounds nice, right? Except this stew has been boiling on the same stove for weeks. The cook just keeps throwing new ingredients in. Leftover meat, mysterious vegetables, things you don't want to know about. It's called slumgullion, which sounds like something invented during a dare. Would it keep you alive? Probably. Would it taste good? No. Would it destroy your stomach? Absolutely. Food poisoning was common. Stomach infections, parasites, bad water, spoiled meat. You wouldn't last 24 hours because your body isn't used to this kind of food warfare. But here's the thing. For the people who lived out here, this was normal. They didn't complain. They didn't demand flavor. They ate to survive, not to enjoy. And as the chapter slows down, imagine the campfire again. The flames glow soft and warm. A cowboy scrapes the bottom of a pot with a spoon, humming quietly. The stars stretch across the sky like shiny dust. Everything feels still. You take a bite of your beans. They're not great. But out here, you'd eat them anyway. The Wild West wasn't just dangerous because of guns or outlaws or animals. It was dangerous because everything, even your dinner, was part of the fight to survive. So rest easy. You're not actually chewing on jerky shaped like granite. You're not drinking river water. You're not eating mystery stew. You're just listening, safe and comfy, letting the story carry you somewhere dusty and old. Another challenge survived. Another day in the Wild West, barely. Tonight, we're talking about something very close to your heart, something precious, something you need to stay alive and not turn into a cranky potato. Sleep. Unfortunately, the Wild West does not care about your sleep needs. Let's drift into the scene now. Slowly, softly, like we're walking on tiptoe across a creaky wooden porch at midnight. The stars are bright above you, sharp and cold, like little ice chips pinned to the sky. The wind moves lazily through the dry grass. The town is quiet, but not peaceful quiet. More like something bad might happen quiet. You look around, searching for a place to sleep. You imagine a soft bed, warm blanket, maybe even a pillow that doesn't feel like a sack of bricks. Oh, sweet summer child. This is the Wild West. Comfortable sleep didn't exist out here. Let's start with housing. Most frontier buildings were thrown together quickly, using the cheapest wood available. Walls didn't fit right. Floors had cracks. Wind slid through every gap like an uninvited ghost. When the night temperature dropped, the cold crept in and hit everyone at once. If you stayed at a frontier hotel, also called a boarding house, you'd walk into a room with a lumpy straw mattress, a thin blanquita pillow shaped like a sad bread loaf, a window that didn't close right, a smell you can't identify, and if you think you'll be sleeping alone, oh no. These hotels packed multiple strangers in one room during busy seasons. Sometimes you'd be side by side with 3 other people, all of them snoring, coughing, rolling over, or sleep-talking about losing a horse. Not exactly restful, but let's say, just for fun, that you decide to sleep outside instead. Maybe under the stars, like the movies show. Big mistake. Within 5 minutes, you'd hear at least one of these. Coyotes howling, horses stomping, someone in town yelling, a gunshot. Because of course, an owl that has personal beef with you, and on top of that, the ground is hard. Really hard. You try lying on your back. Nope. On your side. Worse. On your stomach. Absolutely not. After 10 minutes, you'd trade your entire bank account for a modern memory foam mattress. But let's walk slowly to the heart of this chapter. Why you actually wouldn't sleep in the Wild West. Because sleep wasn't just uncomfortable, it was unsafe. People took turns staying awake on watch. Not because they wanted to, but because danger liked to visit after dark. Thieves, animals, drifters, outlaws. Even weather could ruin your night. Imagine you finally drift off to sleep. The stars blur a little. Your breathing slows. Everything fades into that soft, floaty calm. And then someone bursts into the room yelling, "The horses are gone." Or stampede. Or who took my boots? Frontier towns were noisy at night. Saloons didn't close early. People gambled, argued, bumped into things, and occasionally shot at the ceiling for no reason at all. Streets echoed with hooves, voices, laughter, fights, and sometimes music played badly on a fiddle that sounded more like a cat being emotionally damaged. You would lie there with your thin blanket, eyes wide open, thinking, "I'm not surviving this. I'm not even surviving the night." But let's travel gently now, out to a cowboy camp. Cowboys rarely slept indoors. They slept outside, next to their horses, under the sky. Their beds were simple, a blanket on the ground and a saddle under their head. A saddle. As a pillow, try it. Your neck would need therapy for 5 years. Cowboys slept lightly, really lightly. A snapping twig could wake them. Wind shifting direction could wake them. A horse snorting could wake them. They were trained by life to never fall into deep sleep. A modern person is used to alarms, soft beds, noise-canceling headphones, blackout curtains, and the guarantee that a bear probably won't wander through their lawn at midnight. The Wild West offered none of that. And we haven't even mentioned bedbugs. Oh yes. Frontier mattresses, the straw kind, were basically Airbnb homes for insects. Not only bedbugs, but fleas, ticks, sometimes mice, sometimes things you don't want to name. Imagine trying to sleep while your mattress is moving slightly, because something inside it is also trying to sleep. Yes, exactly. Nightmare fuel. Now let's go slow again. Breathe in. Breathe out. We're stepping into a small frontier cabin now. The fire is low, glowing soft and warm. A family sleeps in the same room. Parents, kids, maybe a hired worker. Privacy wasn't a thing. Everyone slept close together because it kept them warm. You lie on your straw mattress listening to someone breathing heavily, someone snoring, someone whispering in their sleep, someone rolling over and shaking the entire bed frame, maybe a baby crying. Not exactly the perfect, peaceful bedtime environment. Even the frontier wealthy weren't safe. Their houses were drafty. Their beds didn't have modern mattresses. Their blankets were heavy and itchy. Winter nights froze everything. Summer nights cooked everything. Mosquitoes attacked everyone equally. Let's not forget the noise of the natural world. Coyotes calling, wolves howling, animals rummaging near your door. Frontier people heard everything through thin wooden walls. And if you were a traveler, you slept wherever you could. A barn, a wagon, a bench, a patch of dirt, a corner of a saloon, or the floor of someone's house if they were kind enough. But here's the real truth. The reason you would not survive one Wild West night. Your brain wouldn't let you sleep because you'd be too worried something might go wrong. The frontier was dangerous all the time. Even during bedtime, the quiet wasn't comforting. It was suspicious. But in this bedtime story, you're not actually lying on a straw mattress with bedbugs planning an attack. You're not listening for coyotes. You're not freezing or sweating or worrying about someone stealing your boots. You're safe, comfortable, wrapped in a blanket that isn't full of insects. Let the Wild West fade softly into the background now. Let the creaking boardwalk, the dusty wind, the distant coyotes drift away. Let the hard saddle pillows vanish. Let the danger dissolve into quiet. You survived the frontier night. In the story, at least, sleep finally returns, gently, slowly, peacefully. Another chapter down. Another day in the Wild West. You barely survived. Let's open our eyes, slowly, gently, like we're waking up in a place we absolutely did not plan to sleep in. Because in the Wild West, every morning felt a little bit like regret. Welcome to the frontier sunrise, a moment that looks peaceful in paintings, but in real life? Yeah, not so peaceful. Imagine this. You survived the night somehow. Maybe you slept on a straw mattress, maybe on your saddle, maybe on the floor of a strange room that smelled like old boots and disappointment. Your neck hurts. Your back hurts. Your hair looks like you were tackled by a tornado. And your blanket, if you had one, is now on the ground because the wind stole it during the night. The first sound you hear isn't birds. Oh no, it's someone yelling. It might be a cowboy yelling at a horse. It might be a saloon owner yelling at someone who passed out in the doorway. IT might be a very stressed mother telling a kid to fetch water before the sun gets too hot. The Wild West morning did not wait for you to stretch slowly and enjoy life. IT woke you up with the energy of a toddler after eating sugar. Let's step into the scene fully now. The sun is barely rising, a soft glow spreading across the horizon. The sky looks calm. The air is cold enough to make you shiver. The ground is still dusty, dry, stubborn. You sit up, rubbing your eyes, and immediately realize that sleeping in the Wild West didn't make you rested. IT made you tired in a whole new way. Let's talk about the morning chores. Because oh boy, there were many. If you're a cowboy, you're waking up at dawn. Not 7 a.m. Not 6 a.m. Dawn. The moment the sky even thinks about getting lighter, you stretch once, twice, maybe cry a little on the inside, and then get to work. You check the horses, feed them, saddle them. Look for the one horse that always runs away because it knows you're tired. Coffee? Maybe later. And it's going to taste like charcoal and sorrow. If you're living in town, the morning isn't easier. Someone has to fetch water, start the fire, cook breakfast, sweep the porch, check the animals, fix whatever broke last night, and something always broke last night. Meanwhile, you, the modern visitor, are still trying to wake up. Maybe you stretch. Maybe you think about washing your face. Then you look at the water bucket and realize the water is freezing. The bucket smells a little weird, and you're sharing it with 5 other people. You splash your face anyway, because at this point, you just want to feel alive. Let's walk to breakfast now. Every frontier home had a simple breakfast, usually something like burnt biscuits, dry bacon, leftover beans, or maybe, if the universe was feeling kind, a little jam. It wasn't fancy, but it filled you up. Mostly, people didn't sit and scroll on their phone while eating. They didn't have time. They shoveled food into their mouth and ran outside to start the day before the heat kicked in. Breakfast wasn't peaceful. It was fuel. But the real shock for a modern person, isn't the food. It's the noise. The Wild West morning was loud, really loud. Hammering, sawing, roosters screaming like they're in a rock band, dogs barking, horses neighing, kids arguing, wagon wheels rolling, someone practicing the fiddle. Way too early, someone yelling, the well's running low again. Someone else yelling, who took my boots? And you're standing there with your tiny tin cup of coffee, blinking slowly, thinking, I woke up tired, and now I'm getting more tired. Let's gently walk outside. The sun is higher now. The sky turns bright and sharp. The air starts warming fast, faster than you expect. Shadows stretch across the dusty street. People are already moving, carrying supplies, feeding animals, digging, fixing fences, loading wagons, talking loudly about the weather, because the weather controlled everything. Everyone looks busy. Everyone looks focused. Everyone looks like they got 3 minutes of sleep, but are pretending they're fine. And now let's talk about hygiene. A modern morning might include brushing teeth, the shower, skin care, maybe a little hair styling. None of that existed here. You want to brush your teeth? Good luck. Toothbrushes were rare. Toothpaste was weirder than anything you've ever tasted. Some people brushed with crushed charcoal. A modern person would last 3 seconds before saying nope. A bath? Not in the morning. Probably not this week. Maybe not this month. People bathed when they could, which wasn't often. Water was too precious. Heating water took too much effort. You, meanwhile, are used to warm showers and clean clothes. Out here, your clothes already look dirty and you've been awake for only 30 minutes. The frontier morning was a battle you fought half asleep. People worked hard because they had no choice. Life didn't pause so you could feel refreshed. Life didn't care if you slept badly. Life said, get up. There's work to do. The modern person in you is already planning a nap. But naps weren't common either. There was too much to do, and too much danger in letting your guard down. And that's why you wouldn't last. Not because you're weak, but because the Wild West demanded strength before sunrise. But in our bedtime story, you can relax. You can breathe. You don't have to fetch water. You don't have to chase a runaway horse. You don't have to drink cowboy coffee. Just imagine the early light fading away softly. Imagine stepping back from the chores. Imagine leaving the noise behind and returning to your warm, comfortable bed in the present. You survived another chapter, another Wild West challenge. Barely. Take a slow breath and imagine this. Morning in the Wild West again. Not the cool, movie kind where someone whistles dramatically while a tumbleweed rolls by. No, this is the real morning. The kind where your tongue feels like sandpaper, Your boots smell like they've lived a whole separate life without you. And every joint in your body wonders what kind of poor decisions led you to sleep on a rope bed. Or worse, the ground. I end this chapter. We're going for a walk. A long walk. Because one thing people forget about the Wild West is how empty it was. Modern people complain if the grocery store is 7 minutes away. Out here, 7 minutes is how long it takes to cross a single patch of dirt on your way to even more dirt, followed by slightly different dirt. Let's start with the reality of the situation. Towns were few, spread apart, and usually disappointing. They weren't cute like tourist brochures today. Most were a handful of wooden buildings, all looking like they were built using leftover scraps from someone's broken fence. If you were lucky, there was a general store, a saloon, maybe a blacksmith, and occasionally a hotel that was really just a house with extra beds shoved into every possible corner. Now imagine you, with your soft modern feet, deciding you want to go somewhere, maybe for supplies, or maybe just to find a stronger cup of coffee than whatever you accidentally brewed over last night's fire. But the next town could easily be 20 to 40 miles away. Let's say you choose to walk. Brave, respect, but also, why? As you start this journey, the first thing you notice is the heat. The Wild West sun doesn't shine. It attacks. That hat you thought looked stylish suddenly becomes the only thing keeping your scalp from becoming fried chicken. The dry wind slaps your face, and before long, you're squinting so hard you look like you're trying to stare directly into the meaning of life. But don't worry, there's also the cold. Because if you walk long enough, the sun goes down and the temperature drops like it forgot its own job. A desert night can go from "I'm melting" to "I can see my own breath" in less than an hour. Meanwhile, under your boots, everything is trying to trip you. Cactus roots, loose stones, weird holes in the ground that look suspiciously like they belong to an animal with too many teeth. Every step is a gamble. And let's be honest, you're losing, but let's pretend you didn't walk. You got yourself a horse. Congratulations. You now have a 900-pound animal that is equal parts majestic transportation machine and unpredictable chaos. Riding a horse for hours is not the smooth, romantic movie experience you might expect. It's more like sitting on a moving pile of muscles that disagrees with you about almost everything. Your legs? Gone. Your back? Gone. Your dignity? In question. And don't forget, the horse gets tired too. So eventually, both you and the horse look like two exhausted roommates who deeply regret living together. The Wild West wasn't designed for comfort. It was designed for survival. Barely. Along your route, there might be stretches of nothing but silence. Not peaceful silence. This is the kind of silence where your mind goes, something is definitely watching me. And the Wild West loved to remind travelers that they weren't alone. Wolves, coyotes, snakes, and the occasional mountain lion, all doing their usual business, which unfortunately includes looking at you like a potential snack. And then there were the rivers. You see a river and think, oh good, water. But Wild West rivers weren't polite. They were cold, fast, and full of slippery stones ready to ruin your whole week. People drowned crossing rivers often enough that stories about it barely surprised anyone. Just another day, another tragedy. And if you thought bridges would help, nope. Bridges were luxuries, and most towns didn't bother or couldn't afford them. So yes, it's just you, the water, and whatever fish is judging your life choices. Let's talk hunger. You packed food, right? Some jerky, maybe a biscuit, maybe something that used to be bread, you're not sure anymore. It's hard as a rock, but still edible. Technically, if you didn't pack enough, well, then you get to practice everyone's favorite frontier activity, hoping you don't starve today. Hunting was an option, but only if you had skill, patience, luck, and a gun that didn't jam. Spoiler, most guns did. And then, unexpected weather. The West didn't care if you had plans. Dust storms would roll in out of nowhere, turning the landscape into a gritty nightmare that tasted like dirt-flavored misery. People wrapped scarves around their faces just to breathe. Sand would get everywhere. Eyes, nose, mouth, ears, pockets, dreams. But let's say you survive all this and keep walking. Hours pass, then more hours. The horizon looks the same as it did when you started. That's the Wild West's sense of humor. Everything looks close, but is actually really, really far. Finally, maybe by sheer stubbornness, you see it. A small cluster of buildings. A town. Civilization, sort of. You drag yourself closer, imagining water, a bed, maybe a warm meal. But towns were unpredictable. Some were friendly, full of hardworking folks who'd offer help. Others, not so much. You could step into the wrong saloon, bump into the wrong ranch hand, or accidentally look at a drunk cowboy the wrong way. And suddenly you're in a situation your modern conflict resolution skills are not prepared for. And even if the town is peaceful, it might not have what you came for. Supplies ran out. Deliveries got delayed. Store shelves were empty. You walked 30 miles to buy flour, only to find out the last bag was sold yesterday. Congratulations, you now get to walk all the way back to So why wouldn't a modern person last 24 hours in the Wild West? Because even something as simple as going somewhere was a dangerous, exhausting mission. No roads, no shade, no Uber, no snacks, no quick fixes, no backup plan. Just you, the dust, and the quiet whisper of the frontier saying, "Good luck, partner, you're gonna need it." So as this long walk chapter ends, take a deep breath, stretch your legs, and be grateful you don't have to travel miles for groceries, water, or basic safety. In the next chapter, we'll explore another reason you wouldn't last a day out here. A reason just as uncomfortable, unpredictable, and downright risky as everything else we've met so far. But for now, rest. You survived the walk. Mostly, take a slow breath, because this chapter might hurt your modern soul a little. That we're talking about bathrooms. Or rather, the complete lack of them. Because if there's one thing that would instantly take out a modern person in the Wild West, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, it's this: there were no real toilets. None. Zero. Not the kind you know. Not even close. Let's paint the scene gently. Imagine you're in a small frontier town, maybe just waking up after a rough night on a rope bed that felt like sleeping on a tired trampoline. You stretch, yawn, and your body says, "Hey, we should handle some business." But wait, there is no bathroom down the hall. No tile floored, no shiny handle to flushed, no toilet paper roll dangling politely. Instead, you have choices, and none of them are good. Let's start with outhouses, because they were the closest thing to a proper facility you'd find. Picture a small wooden shack sitting behind the saloon or near someone's barn. A little crooked, a little sad, a little haunted looking, honestly. It's usually leaning slightly to one side, like even it's tired of existing. Inside is a wooden seat with a hole cut out, and beneath that hole, just a deep pit. A deep, smelly, terrifying pit. But hold on, we're going too fast. You're still standing outside the outhouse. And already the air around it smells like every bad decision humanity has ever made. The kind of smell that grabs you by the soul and says, "Turn back." But you can't. You need to go. So you open the door slowly, like you're entering a cursed room in a horror movie. The door creaks, because of course it creaks, and a wave of heat and scent comes rolling out like it's greeting you personally. Inside, there is no light. Not really. Maybe a crack in the wall letting in a sad sliver of sun. You sit down carefully, praying the wood is stable. And then you do your business while staring at the wall, trying very hard not to breathe too deeply. Modern people would not last long here. You're used to bathrooms that smell like lemon cleaner and confusion. This is nature, darkness, and fear. And just when you think it can't get worse, sometimes things live down there. Small things, big things, crawly things. Let's move on before you stop listening. If you were out on the trail, the bathroom situation was even worse. Forget the outhouse. You got the great outdoors. And depending on the terrain, that could mean bushes, rocks, or absolutely nothing for miles. Imagine needing privacy and the entire planet saying, "Nope, not today." On the open prairie, everything is flat. Everything is exposed. If you were traveling with a wagon group, you'd walk far away, hoping nobody looks in your direction. But the wind is strong, the ground is uneven, and worst of all, everyone knows exactly why you're walking off into the distance. And don't forget, you're in rattlesnake country. There are places you don't want to squat. Still, nature calls, and nature doesn't care about dignity. So you would find a spot, pray it's safe, and hope the wind doesn't blow your hat into something you can't unsee. But wait, we haven't even talked about nighttime. Imagine it's pitch dark, inside a small cabin or camp. You hear wolves howling, coyotes yipping, an owl making a sound that honestly feels like it's judging you. Your stomach decides it needs attention right now. But going outside, into the cold, Into the danger? This is when chamber pots come in. A chamber pot sounds fancy, but really, it's a bucket. A bucket with a handle, sometimes with a lid, sometimes not. People kept them under beds, used them during the night, and then emptied them in the morning, if they weren't too tired to forget. You think stepping on a Lego hurts? Try accidentally kicking a chamber pot in the dark, and the smell. Well, let's just say this chapter is starting to write itself. Let's pause for a second and think about hygiene. Modern soap, modern sinks, modern showers, running water, tissues, disinfecting wipes. Yeah, none of that existed out here. People washed when they could, which was not often. Baths took time, effort, and a lot of hot water. And most homes didn't have tubs. You had to heat water over a fire, carry it bucket by bucket, fill a basin, and then everyone used the same water. Everyone. Same water. But back to bathrooms. Sometimes you'd be traveling through the open desert, and the only real option was to find a spot behind a rock and hope whoever lived near that rock wasn't venomous. Some native tribes had designated spots for privacy, but travelers didn't always know the rules. That led to some awkward and dangerous encounters. Now imagine modern you in this situation. You have a sensitive stomach. You need comfort. You need clean surfaces. You need toilet paper softer than a cloud. Well, toilet paper in the West? It wasn't soft, or white, or nicely rolled. People used newspapers, catalog pages, corn cobs. Yes, corn cobs. Let's not discuss that further. Even when towns grew bigger, plumbing didn't magically appear. Some places didn't get real indoor bathrooms until the early 1900s. That means generations of people lived their entire lives dealing with outhouses, buckets, and outdoor adventures they did not choose. A modern person? You'd last maybe half a day before breaking down emotionally. Imagine a hot summer day. You go to the outhouse. The smell hits before you even open the door. Flies everywhere. The seat is warm, but not in the comforting way. More like, several strangers have been here in the last 2 hours. Then imagine winter. The wood is freezing. The wind somehow sneaks through every crack. Your teeth are chattering. And the moment you sit, oof, you rethink every life choice that led to this moment. Oh yes. The Wild West bathroom situation was a whole adventure by itself. One no modern traveler is ready for. No hand soap, no scented candles, no heated seats, no privacy, and definitely no comfort. The Wild West tested people in big ways. Storms, hunger, danger, but honestly, the bathroom problem alone could defeat anyone who wasn't raised out here. As you relax now, listening to this gentle bedtime history, appreciate the modern world for a second. Appreciate your bathroom, your toilet, your plumbing, your soft tissue, your air freshener, all of it, because out on the frontier, just surviving the bathroom situation might already be too much. Take a breath. Let the discomfort fade. And as you drift towards sleep, you can be grateful that your nighttime routine does not include walking through cold darkness toward a haunted wooden box. In the next chapter, we'll explore another challenge. One just as uncomfortable, unpredictable, and quietly terrifying. But for now, rest. You've survived chapter 21. And trust me, that's an accomplishment. Take a slow breath and picture this. You're sitting outside a small wooden cabin somewhere on the frontier. It's late afternoon, the sky is still bright, and everything feels calm in that sleepy Wild West way. Maybe you're sipping some bad coffee. Maybe you're just resting your sore feet. Life is quiet. And then something shifts. A breeze touches the back of your neck. The horizon darkens. The birds go silent in that spooky, oh, something's coming kind of way. Welcome to Wild West weather, the kind that doesn't send you polite warnings. NO weather, a PP'd NO radar. NO forecast telling you a storm is expected around 7 p.m. Out here, the weather just happens. 1 minute you're fine. The next minute the sky is basically throwing a dramatic tantrum. This chapter is about those storms and how a modern person, you, would absolutely not survive them for very long. Let's start with thunderstorms, because the West specializes in those big, booming, cinematic ones with lightning that looks like it wants to personally fight the ground. These storms didn't ease in gently. They rolled in fast. One moment you're admiring the scenery. The next you're being slapped by sideways rain that feels like someone threw a bucket of ice water at your face. Picture yourself running toward shelter. Except your shelter is a small wooden cabin with a roof that leaks, walls that whistle in the wind, and windows that are more decorative suggestions than actual protection. Some cabins were built quickly by tired hands, using whatever wood was nearby. They weren't designed to survive the kind of thunderstorm that rearranges your entire belief system. Inside, you'd sit on the floor, listening to the wind howl like a ghost with anger issues. Lightning flashes through the gaps in the boards, and every boom rattles the walls like it's trying to scare you out of your own skin. Modern people don't do well with loud, unpredictable noises. Your brain goes, "This is fine." Your heart goes, "No, it's not." Your soul goes, "Goodbye, everyone." Meanwhile, the pioneers around you shrug and say something like, "Weather's rolling in," as if the entire sky isn't trying to break into your house. Then there's hail, not cute little pellets. No, these are ice. Stones the size of marbles, sometimes even golf balls, coming at you with the speed and enthusiasm of someone who really wants you to suffer. Imagine you're out riding or walking. Suddenly, the sky dumps a bucket of ice rocks directly onto your head. You try to run, but the ground is slippery, the wind is angry, and you're pretty sure your hat isn't thick enough to protect your skull. And if you think hail is bad, let's talk about dust storms. Dust storms in the West weren't small moments of swirling dirt. They were massive, rolling walls of dust that looked like the earth was rising up to swallow the sky. You might see a brownish wall in the distance, and your brain, modern and optimistic, might think, "Oh look, fog. No, not fog. This is nature's giant vacuum cleaner flipping into reverse." When a dust storm hit, everyone had seconds, maybe minutes, to prepare. People grabbed scarves, covered their faces, shut doors, closed windows, and hoped the storm didn't rip half the house off. The dust found every crack, every gap, every little weakness. If there was a hole the size of a grain of rice, dust went through it like it was on a mission. Inside your cabin, you'd cough until your chest hurt. Your eyes would burn. You'd be covered in a layer of dirt like the universe decided to season you. Even after the storm passed, you'd find dust in places you didn't know existed. In your hair, in your bed, in your food, in your soul. Another weather danger? Flash floods. Now the West looks dry, right? But when rain does happen, especially lots of it, there's nothing to soak it up. Water races downhill, forming rivers out of nowhere. Dry creek beds turn into roaring channels that sweep away everything in their path. Animals, wagons, and sometimes very unlucky pioneers. Imagine you're taking a quiet afternoon stroll, enjoying the scenery, when suddenly you hear a low rumble. Before you can even process what it is, a wave of muddy water comes charging toward you like it's late for an appointment. You try running uphill, slipping on wet rocks, panicking as the water gets closer. It's terrifying, because flash floods don't care who you are or how fast you can run. And then, there's the heat. Not summer heat like today, where you complain and turn on your AC. No, this is desert heat. Heat that swallows you whole. Heat that feels like the air is being cooked around you. No shade for miles. No water close by. No sunscreen. Just sunburn, dehydration, and regret. People carried water, but water ran out fast. And if you found a river or watering hole, there was no guarantee it was safe to drink. Sometimes it made people sick. Other times, animals drank there first, and not all of them were friendly. Add to that the reality of cold nights. The West loves extremes. Hot during the day, freezing at night. One moment you're sweating, the next you're shivering so hard your teeth are clapping together like applause. Imagine losing your fire in the wind. Imagine not having enough blankets. Imagine curling up against a cold wall, wrapped in a thin coat, praying the night passes quickly. And if you thought winter storms were gentler, nope. They were brutal. Snow could pile high, blocking doors. It could trap entire families indoors for days, sometimes weeks. People ran out of food. Animals froze. Nights were long, quiet, and bitterly cold. Now imagine modern you dealing with any of this. NO apps, NO alerts, NO heated homes, NO winter jackets with 14 pockets and 3 layers, NO fans, NO coolers, NO comfy slippers, NO staying inside because it looks like rain. You'd have to face whatever weather decided to happen. Right then, right there. No choice. No escape. The Wild West wasn't dangerous only because of guns or outlaws or illness. The weather alone was like a boss fight you didn't sign up for. So now, as you settle back, letting your breathing slow, think about something comforting. Your home, your roof, your walls, your climate control, your nice, stable bed that doesn't shake when the wind blows. The modern world makes storms feel manageable, predictable, even cozy. But out in the West, weather was a test, and most people barely passed as this chapter ends. Take a breath. Let the thunder fade in your imagination. Let the dust settle. Let the wind calm. Take a slow breath, let your shoulders loosen, and imagine this. It's night in the Wild West again. Not the relaxing, peaceful kind you experience in the modern world. The kind with soft sheets, quiet rooms, and maybe a fan humming gently in the background. No, this is frontier night. A night that doesn't care whether you're tired, cold, or emotionally done with the day. A night that has its own plans. Picture a small campfire burning low, sparks floating up like sleepy fireflies. A circle of wagons around you. The stars above are unbelievably bright, beautiful, but also a little intimidating, like the sky is watching you more closely than you'd like. You're ready to sleep. Your legs ache from walking all day. Your back feels like someone replaced your spine with a dry stick. Your eyes are heavy. You lie down on a bedroll that's definitely not soft enough. Pull a blanket around you. And just when your brain starts drifting into dreamland, someone shakes your shoulder. Your turn for night watch. Great. Perfect. Exactly what you wanted. Welcome to Night Watch, one of the most exhausting and stressful parts of life in the Wild West. Modern people would not survive this. Not even close. Let's start with the obvious. There were no security systems. No cameras. No motion sensors. No smart doorbells sending you cute notifications. Out here, you were the doorbell, the camera, the sensor, and the scary noise detector, all at once. Night watch existed because sleeping wasn't safe. Not fully. The frontier was full of things that liked to show up when the sun went down. Animals, strangers, thieves, hungry predators, desperate people. All of them knew the darkness was their friend. Wagon trains, ranches, small settlements, lonely cabins. Everyone had to take turns staying awake to keep an eye on things. Imagine yourself sitting by the fire, wrapped in a blanket, holding a lantern or maybe a rifle you barely know how to use. The silence is huge. You can hear your own heartbeat. Every time the wind moves a bush, you nearly jump out of your skin. And then, the sounds. The sounds. Coyotes howling in the distance. Owls making their ghostly, noises. Something rustling in the bushes. Something else stepping on a branch. A low growl you swear you didn't imagine. Your brain is trying to be logical. Probably just a rabbit, but your soul whispers, what if it's Bigfoot? Or, worse, what if it's some outlaw who thinks your boots look nice? Let's talk about predators for a moment. Wolves weren't the main problem. They usually avoided humans. But coyotes? They loved to come close, sniff around camp, and try to grab whatever food they could find. If you were cooking something tasty earlier, their noses absolutely remembered. Mountain lions were out there too, quiet and sneaky, moving like shadows with paws softer than your pillow. They could watch without you ever knowing. Do you want to sleep peacefully after hearing that? Probably not. And then, bears. The big, grumpy, this is my land kind of bears. They didn't care about your bedtime. If they smelled food or garbage or anything remotely interesting, they wandered in to investigate, sometimes pushing over wagons, sometimes poking their heads into tents like unwelcome guests. Now imagine all this while you're half asleep, rubbing your eyes, trying to stay alert, praying nothing jumps out of the darkness. But animals weren't the only concern. There were people too. Travelers passing through. Drifters. Outlaws. Bandits looking for easy targets. Desperate folks with nothing left to lose. Nighttime was perfect for sneaking, stealing, and causing trouble. Horse thieves were especially common. One good horse could be worth a small fortune. People risked their lives to steal them. During night watch, you had to keep an eye on the animals too, because if the horses started acting nervous, something was out there. And if the horses bolted, you were doomed. No transportation, no escape, no way to carry supplies. Let's not forget the good old-fashioned fear of the dark. The Wild West wasn't lit by street lamps. Once the sun went down, the only light came from the moon, stars, and fires. And if clouds covered the sky, darkness, pure darkness. The kind where you hold out your hand and can't see your fingers. The kind where your imagination fills in the blanks with horrors that are absolutely not real, but also feel very real. And yet, people had to sit out there for hours, watching, listening, trying not to panic, trying not to fall asleep. Because falling asleep on night watch wasn't just irresponsible, it was deadly. Entire wagon groups had been attacked because their night guard nodded off. Ranches were robbed. Horses vanished. Fires went out, leaving everyone freezing. Modern people? We struggle to stay awake when our phone is charging and there's nothing to scroll. Imagine staying awake in the cold, with danger crouching in the shadows, and zero entertainment except your own thoughts telling you, "Hey, what was that noise?" Let's talk about fatigue. By the time night came, most folks were already exhausted. They'd spent the whole day traveling, farming, hunting, repairing tools, cooking, hauling water, or doing 100 other physical tasks. Sleep wasn't optional, it was desperately needed. And yet, someone always had to stay up. If there were enough people, they rotated in shifts, maybe an hour or two each. But smaller groups? Sometimes only one or two people were available, meaning long, lonely hours with heavy eyelids. Picture yourself fighting sleep. The fire crackles softly. The warm light is hypnotic. Your head droops. Your eyes close. You jerk awake. Repeat. Repeat again. And again. Every small noise becomes suspicious. Every breeze becomes threatening. Every shadow becomes a problem. Your nerves are fried. Your heart is tired. And when your shift finally ends, you crawl into your bedroll, only to wake up a couple of hours later when the sun comes up and everyone has work to do again. Sleeping in. That didn't exist. Now, imagine doing this night after night, day after day, with no break from the worried, escape from the fear, weekends, mental health day. Just responsibility. Because survival demanded it. Why wouldn't a modern person last 24 hours in the Wild West? Well, can you survive the night? Could you sit alone in the darkness, listening to the world around you breathe and creep and move, knowing that danger could slip out of the shadows at any moment? Could you stay awake when your body begs for rest? Could you calm your own fear long enough to keep watch for everyone else? Most modern folks would tap out before midnight. As this chapter ends, take a breath. Imagine the fire glowing gently. Imagine the night softening. Imagine the fear fading as the sky brightens with the first light of dawn. In the next chapter, we'll look at another struggle of frontier life, one that might be even harder than keeping watch. But for now, rest. You've survived the night watch. Take a slow breath, let your shoulders drop. Imagine you're sitting beside a dusty little campfire in the Wild West. The flames are crackling softly. The sky is huge and dark. The stars are glowing like tiny lanterns hung up by someone with way too much free time. Your stomach growls, not politely, but loudly, like it's saying, "Hello? Can we eat something that isn't terrible today?" Well, good luck with that, because in the Wild West, food was not really about taste. It was about staying alive. Barely. Let's start with the basics. There were no grocery stores. No fridges, no snacks in shiny bags, no chocolate bars hiding in a drawer, no delivery apps. I'm just gonna grab something quick. You ate what you could hunt, what you could grow, what you could trade for. Or what somehow survived the journey in your wagon without turning into a science experiment. Most meals looked like this: beans, dried meat, more beans, hard biscuits that could probably break your teeth, and, if you were lucky, maybe a little bit of bacon. But let's talk about hardtack, because this thing deserves its own moment. Hardtack was a biscuit made of flour, water, and sadness, baked until it became as hard as a rock. If you dropped it on your foot, you would regret it deeply. People didn't bite into it, unless they wanted to lose a tooth. They soaked it in coffee or stew until it softened. Sometimes it took forever, sometimes it never softened. Some folks joke that hardtack from the Civil War was still being eaten in the Wild West because it never went bad. Then there was jerky, dried, salty, chewy meat. Good protein, terrible texture that you'd chew a piece for so long that you'd finish processing your whole day before it finally broke apart. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Chewy sadness, someone probably said once. And beans, oh, beans. Cowboys lived on them. A pot simmering over a fire was like a warm hug for your stomach. Until later, when your stomach returned the hug in a way that made everyone regret sitting next to you. Fresh vegetables? Not common. Most people went weeks without seeing anything green. When someone did find a carrot or onion, everyone stared at it like it was a rare treasure. Bread? Sometimes. If you had flour, water, yeast, if you were lucky, and a fire that didn't go out. But bread spoiled fast, So most folks stuck with hard biscuits. Your jaw became very strong. Coffee was a big deal. Not fancy coffee. Not smooth, rich blends that no foam hearts, no caramel drizzle. This was gritty, smoky frontier coffee made from beans that had been roasted, crushed, and boiled until the pot itself begged for mercy. Some people reused old coffee grounds. They boiled them again, and again, and again. By the fifth cup, you were basically drinking brown water with a hint of suffering. Now let's talk about something truly frightening. Spoilage. Meat spoiled fast in the heat, so people salted it heavily or smoked it. Food stored in wagons often got moldy. Flour grew bugs. Rice got damp. Crackers got soft. And sometimes you had to shake your food before eating it, just to see if anything crawled out. Modern, you would not survive this moment. Imagine opening a bag of flour and finding movement. Your soul would leave your body. But pioneers, they shrugged and sifted the bugs out. Life goes on. Let's move to cooking conditions. Cooking on the frontier wasn't easy. You cooked over fire, which meant too much heat sometimes, not enough heat other times, burning the bottom of your food while the top stayed raw, wind blowing ash into your pot, smoke attacking your eyes while you stirred beans like you were being punished, and the tools? A cast iron pot, maybe a pan, maybe a coffee pot. That's it. No measuring spoons, no oven, no electric stove. Just fire, instinct, and the hope you didn't burn dinner again. Frontier women and camp cooks were heroes. They cooked under impossible conditions and somehow kept everyone fed. Now, imagine you're out on a long trail. After weeks of traveling, your supplies start running low. You're tired. Your boots are tired. Your soul is tired. That's when people turn to things like squirrel, rabbit, prairie chicken, rattlesnake. Yes, rattlesnake. Tastes like chicken, apparently. Everything tastes like chicken if you're hungry enough. Some folks hunted bison. Big, powerful animals that could feed a family for days if you managed to bring one down safely. Bison meat was tough but filling, and drying it made it last longer. If you were near a river, fish became a blessing. But fishing took time, skill, and a bit of luck. Some native tribes taught settlers which plants were safe to eat, which roots to dig, which berries to avoid. Without that knowledge, many travelers would have starved. Now think about dessert. Actually, don't there. Usually wasn't any. If someone had preserved fruit or a little sugar, they guarded it like gold. And oh, milk. Milk didn't come from cartons. It came from cows that needed to survive long, dusty journeys. Milk often went sour quickly, especially in heat. People drank sour milk anyway, made butter from it, made cheese from it. Life was improvisation. Modern people, they panic when the fridge is empty. They collapse emotionally when the Wi-Fi drops. Imagine trying to survive on beans, jerky, and a biscuit that could double as building material. You wouldn't last a day. Not happily, anyway. Food in the Wild West kept you alive, but it didn't make you smile. It didn't comfort you. It didn't reward you. It reminded you. Every meal. That life was tough, and survival didn't taste great. But there's something gentle underneath all this. Food brought people together. A pot of stew shared around a fire created moments of warmth in a cold world. People swapped stories, laughed quietly, teased each other, and talked about home. The food wasn't good, but the moments around it mattered. As you drift into a soft, sleepy haze, imagine that warm fire, that quiet night, that circle of tired travelers sharing a meal because it's all they had. Smiles were small, but real. In the next chapter, we'll explore another harsh truth of the Wild West, one that might be even harder to digest than the food. But for now, rest. You've had your beans for the day. Take a deep breath, because this chapter is where everything from the previous 24 hours lands on your shoulders all at once, like a mule deciding to sit on your chest. Let's imagine it's now the final stretch of your first full day in the Wild West. And spoiler alert, you're tired. Not regular tired, Wild West tired. The kind where your bones feel like they've belonged to 3 different people before you. The sun is dropping again, slowly slipping behind the jagged horizon, turning the sky warm orange and dusty gold. Except this time, you're not admiring the sunset with peaceful frontier vibes. Nope, that you're leaning on a wooden post outside a tiny frontier shack, catching your breath, trying to make your back stop hurting from riding a horse that never liked you. That animal has been judging you since dawn. Your clothes? They're stiff with sweat, dust, and maybe a few tears. Let's be honest. Your boots? They feel like medieval torture devices that somehow survived into the 1800s. That your stomach? Growling like a coyote because you had exactly two things to eat today. Dry, flavorless biscuits. And hope. Mostly hope. Now the campfire crackles softly beside you. It actually should be relaxing, but your brain is still replaying the whole day like a slow-motion disaster. Montage. You survived the saloon chaos. You survived outlaw panic. You survived the sun trying to bake you alive, the dust storms trying to bury you, and the horse trying to assassinate you. But here's the funny part. This is the easy day. A normal day. Tomorrow, things could be worse. Way worse. You watch the sky turn darker. Stars start poking through, and the cool night breeze brushes your face. Finally, some relief. For a few seconds, it feels peaceful, calm, almost dreamy, but then you hear it. A low growl. Not from you. This one's bigger. Coyotes somewhere in the brush. Maybe wolves. Maybe something else that doesn't care about your bedtime story channel. Your shoulders tense. You look around, hoping someone else will handle whatever danger is creeping closer, but everyone else is calm. Almost bored. Why? Because to them, these sounds are normal, part of daily life. Danger wasn't a rare event here. It was background noise. And that's the moment you finally get it. Not the romantic cowboy posters. Not the cute movie scenes. Not the cozy campfire vibes. No, you suddenly understand the real Wild West. It wasn't wild because of outlaws or gunfights. It was wild because life itself was a constant challenge. A daily test. A world where you never really slept deeply. You never really felt safe. You never knew what tomorrow would bring, and you had to be tougher than the land itself. But you're a modern soul. You like air conditioning. You like soft blankets. You like Wi-Fi. Don't lie. You like the luxury of not being attacked by random wildlife during a nap. The fire pops loudly, snapping you out of your thoughts. A cowboy beside you, quiet, weathered, wearing a hat older than your entire family tree, glances over and gives you a nod. Not a friendly nod. More like a "you did your best, kid" nod. And you know what that means? You failed the vibe check of the 1800s. He knows it. You know it. Even the horse knows it. You're 24 hours in the Wild West. You're barely scraping through the final minutes as the night fully takes over and the sky fills with stars brighter than any modern city can show. You lie down on a bed of straw, dust, and wishful thinking. You close your eyes. The sounds of nature echo around you. The world feels older, harsher, bigger, and the final truth settles in. You wouldn't last 24 hours here. Not because you're weak, not because you're soft, but because the Wild West was built different. People survived here because they woke up every day already ready for a fight with the land, the weather, the dangers, and sometimes even each other. And tomorrow morning, when that sun rises again, the Old West will start the cycle all over. But you? Let's be honest, you'd be heading home. Back to your real bed. Your clean water. Your breakfast that isn't 90% dust. Your world where the scariest morning danger is missing the alarm. And honestly, there's no shame in that. Because the Wild West wasn't designed for comfort. It was designed for survival.